everything said and done, Representative Stefanski, who is the chair of House and Governmental Affairs for the state, and he's also a representative of Crowley and parts of Acadiana in that district, he put out a bill. He filed a bill that would say that, the distribution of fentanyl would now have criminal penalizations equal to murder. It would be increased to be equal to murder if the House and Senate vote on that. So, of course, it's got to go through that legislative process. Lots of tough words to go through. Mm-hmm. But how does that make you guys feel as mothers who have been touched by this toxic substance, fentanyl?
It's amazing. Like, that's what needs to be done. They need to be charged with murder if they sell fentanyl to people. I mean, it is a weapon of mass destruction, and it needs to be gone. It has to be controlled. It has to be deleted. It has to be 86'd. Fentanyl needs to go. So I love this, and I really hope it'll put some people behind bars that are killing so many Americans in the United States and all across the world.
Absolutely. Anything from you guys about that?
I think as parents, we always, want the worst thing to happen to the people that killed our children. So I'm kind of biased to it, of course. But it is, like Casey said, it's a weapon of mass destruction, and it is everywhere. And nobody is immune to this. So it covers the whole gamut as far as the type of population. It's out of control.
Anything you'd have to say about it?
Well, being an addict in recovery, prior to Hunter dying, I didn't totally agree with that until it was my child. And, my opinions changed a little bit. And until there's consequences for people's actions, nothing's going to change. Is it maybe necessarily right that this person goes to jail and this person doesn't? Maybe not, but like I said, until there's consequences and people see that there's consequences, there's not going to be any change. And even if just one child is saved, it's totally worth it. It's totally worth it.
Absolutely. And going off of this, we've talked previously, and 3 grains of salt worth of this drug, this substance, is enough to be fatal. And I know that we were sitting at a coffee shop, and I'm sure there was probably a salt shaker nearby, and that's just crazy to think about. Knowing this, do you feel as though more word needs to be spread about this drug, this substance, especially, it's St. Patrick's Day today, as we head into the further festival season, all these holidays, people are going to do what they do. So what is your take?
Oh, yeah, definitely. I was just telling them, I was watching the news, and it's so bad, coming in from Mexico, and in Mexico itself, in pharmacies in Mexico, that spring break, if you're going to Mexico, you're an idiot. Sorry. Because between the killings and the kidnappings and the drugs, it is just the worst place to be. There's better places to go to the beach, U.S. Virgin Islands, Florida, Bahamas, wherever, to go, because even the pharmacies in Mexico are selling counterfeit pills. They did a study, and I brought it along, that they went to 40 pharmacies in Mexico, and 30% of the oxycodone pills were fentanyl, 11% of the oxycodone pills were heroin, and 82% of the Adderall pills were meth. That is in a pharmacy. That's not a drug dealer on the street. They also found not just that there was some blood thinner medicine that wasn't even medicine. It was just chalk. So if you're on blood thinner, that's something to save your life, and you're not getting the medication. There's 1.2 million Americans that go to Mexico for they call it medical tourism, and it's just dangerous from top to bottom.
And, a lot of the time, speaking of the dangers, with that danger, a lot of the time comes stigma. And I know we've talked about this, we've heard about this, but there are still people out there, and there are still going to be people out there that, you know, from perhaps youth in school associate drug use with being a bad person. And that's terrible. But with that said, what do y'all have to say about the stigma that comes with this? I mean, in your work with Millie Mattered, in your work together as parents, what is your take on that? Because, I mean, it's going to be around, unfortunately. So what do you have to say about that as we head into these party dates like festivals and, of course, St. Patrick's Day, and with everything that's been said and done?
It can happen to anybody. It knows no boundaries. Anyone. I mean, you got to be careful out there. You have to stay safe. It does not discriminate. It will hit you from all angles, and they're putting it in everything. Fentanyl is in everything right now. So stay safe. You know, have your green beer, but stay safe. Don't take anything that is not from the pharmacist. Trust me, I want to save your life. I want to save your mom and dad the heartbreak. And, you know, addiction doesn't discriminate either. I mean, there's football players that get injured and start on OxyContin for the pain. And then they take them off the OxyContin, and guess what? They're addicts, and they're hooked now. You know, you can see people that go from injury to death in a year and a half because, you know, the medicine that they're giving them, they're addicts, and they don't want to stop it now. And so they get it however they can. People need to understand, I believe, the addict's mind compared to, I'm not an addict. I've done stuff in the past. I did not go after it. Again, I'm not an addict. My daughter was. And we didn't, you know it until it was too late. And that's the unfortunate thing.
I think the stigma about it also is that Gabrielle was an addict. She was clean. She was straight out of rehab when she died. But there was so much more to our kids than the addiction that they had. You know, Gabrielle was a sister, a daughter, a granddaughter. She was so much fun. She walked into a room and you just knew she was there because everybody started laughing. So there's more to people when you see somebody, you know, a lot of homeless people on the side of the road and they're acting erratic and you just want to turn the other way. To me, it makes me think, I wonder if they've ever been offered help. I wonder where they're going from here. I mean, it's a different view that we have now on addicts, you know, after being a parent of one. But yeah, there's so much more to them. They're worth saving.
Yeah.
So that's why everybody should have Narcan in their home, in their business. You know, it's a nasal spray. You squirt it once. If it doesn't work, you should usually, with fentanyl, you have to do more than one because it's so strong. But if it's not an opiate, it doesn't hurt them, you know? But it does give them that chance to have another day, to seek treatment. Or if it's one of those kids that, hey, I just wanted to party, you know, for the weekend with my 5 friends, you know, they don't have to pay for it for the rest of their lives. Their parents don't have to pay for it, really, for the rest of their lives. They can be saved and lesson learned, hopefully, and you go on from that. But, you know, our kids were adored.
Yeah. And nobody wakes up in the morning and goes, oh, I'm going to be an addict now. You know, it starts from trauma. It starts from mental problems, and then it develops into something that they're going to self-medicate for just to stop the pain that they're feeling inside. And like I said, nobody wakes up and says, oh, I want to be an addict today and, you know, struggle the rest of my life. Because
I think when we speak with Millie Mattered, and I know Christy speaks, it's more about also humanizing and letting people know when we have an event and we speak, you know, it's my daughter was this, my son was this, I've been through this before. And it lets people know that, there was more to them. I know you can speak on that.
Yeah, I mean, I've struggled with drug addiction for 20 years. When I got clean, fentanyl wasn't around. And fentanyl today is not necessarily the addicts that are dying. It's the scary thing is parents hear fentanyl or drugs and they're not my kid, not my child, or I don't do heroin or I don't do IV drugs, and that's just not the case anymore. It's not targeted towards one person. You can have a 15, 16-year-old kid that wants to go to prom or homecoming and they just take a pill, and then that's it, like it's done. Our kids are supposed to learn from their mistakes, and today they're dying from them. 20 years ago when I was in active addiction, there was signs. Today it could be that first time and it's the end.
And speaking on that, you said it, a kid will want to maybe experiment or something like that. We use the term experiment all the time. And I mean, a lot of people have done it. And with that said, that one nowadays compared to back then, that one time, that's it.
And these kids, Hunter, he was an adult, he was 22. However, most of the time, when they get something from somebody, it's not from just pulling up to someone in a corner that's selling drugs. In Hunter's case, it was a coworker, it was a friend, someone older than him, someone he trusted, and someone he had a relationship with, a friendship with. So he trusted this person that he would be safe. Most of the time it does come from people that we think are our friends.
And clearly talking about this takes a lot of strength, so I appreciate you guys for doing that, because putting yourself out there personally, and then not only that, but your child, that's guts.
To me, this is part of my grieving process. So doing this advocacy work helps me get through that I'm doing something for Gabrielle and something she would probably do herself for other people. So I know, like initially when I went looking for something after she passed away, I saw grief groups, but that just wasn't for me. I didn't want to go sit in a room and be sad and cry and, poor pitiful me kind of deal and listen to the same of other people. I wanted to do something. And that's when I found Millie Mattered, and I found Lily Harvey and sent her a huge email, detailing Gabrielle's story and everything and what I was going through. And she's been amazing. She's been amazing in chartering all these, different cities with Millie Mattered and getting legislation passed.
I think there's a stigma too that when somebody finds out we've lost a child, they feel real compassionate, and then they find out how, and it's just, you could just almost immediately see the change. But Hunter was, that morning was getting up and going to his full-time job. He was a great kid. He fished. Gabby was hilarious and just full of life and had so much potential. I knew Lyric personally, and she had so much coming for her in her tattoo career. These kids are our future, and they had great futures, and they just one poor decision ended all of it, and people don't realize too, we're victims in this too. We didn't, we lost our kids because of choices of other people, and that stigma that it's a parenting issue. It's not a parenting issue. Yes, in my situation, Hunter did grow up with me being an addict, but in Gabby's situation, her parents been married for 20 plus years.
Yeah, 28 years.
And Casey's not an addict. Like Lyric had a twin brother and a sister and a family. So it doesn't discriminate with what kind of environment.
I think we were all, after talking that we were all very open with our kids about drugs and about everything else. And Gabrielle was very open with me, you know, and that's why I know that she was poisoned with fentanyl, because she would tell me, we'll never do fentanyl because I don't want to die. And when we got the tox report that it was only fentanyl in her system, I knew she wouldn't have done that by her own choice. So she must have gotten, you know, some type of pill, counterfeit pill, from somebody.
And the counterfeit pills, I mean, Amazon has got to stop selling pill presses. That needs to just go away. There's no reason.
You can get one for $200 on Amazon.
On Amazon, there's no reason anybody needs a pill press. A pharmacist needs it. But
even
Amazon,
then,
stop.
pharmacists get everything from manufacturers now. It's not the pharmacies from, you know, like the 1900s that you had to mix all your stuff together and make your pills. Even then, they don't even really need it.
You have people targeting children on TikTok, Snapchats. You know, I think in all of our cases, I think our kids knew the person and probably trusted this person. But I don't, you know, these kids, they don't think, like, when you target, I'm seeing them 12, 13, 14 years old, and they don't have the mindset and the mental capacity to, like, understand life or death. Like, it's that, like, they just, you know, so then when you target these kids.
Some adults don't have the capacity to. I knew my daughter was an addict, but death never came into my mind thinking of my daughter. I knew there would be relapses just because that is the, you know, how addiction, the course of addiction is. But I never thought death. Even the day when I got called to go to the sober living house and I was told that she OD'd, I thought I was going to go in and see her and she was going to be with an IV and crying, going, "Mom, I messed up, I'm sorry," you know, something like that. It still took several times of me asking where she was for it to click in my head that she had passed away. So, like I said, even in adults, you just don't think it's going to be your child. No matter what issues your child has, you want, you know, you always expect the best and want the best for them.
I meet medical personnel now that still don't comprehend that fentanyl is in Lafayette. They're, you know, when it's talked about, they'll say, "Well, I knew what fentanyl is, but I didn't know it was here." Like, it is here. It is in Lafayette. It is in Acadiana. It's at our high schools, middle schools. It is in, like, people just don't understand. It's not a problem that you're seeing on Fox News or any news outlet somewhere else. Like, it is here, and it's happening here. And a lot of times, because of the stigma, you don't hear about it because people don't want to talk about it. So that's why I think we're so open, because I'm not ashamed of my son at all.
Exactly.
He was a great kid.
Not in the least am I ashamed of my daughter.
No. Our kids were poisoned. You know, she had tattoo appointments the next day. She was an in-demand tattoo artist. She didn't want to die. I mean, our kids were poisoned. We're not gonna hide behind that. Right. We have education and awareness about how bad it is in Acadiana is what's needed.
We are so close to the Mexican border that, of course, we're right. I-10 is that big, just
49.
yeah, that I-10 goes, you know, from Florida to California, and coming up from Mexico, Texas, we're, you know, Lake Charles, Lafayette. We're right there on the distribution of it. And it's hard to understand, especially since we've lost children, to talk to anybody nowadays that doesn't comprehend the volume of fentanyl that is around and who it's affecting. I mean, okay, so 2021, the year Gabrielle died, almost 108,000 people died from fentanyl overdose. 108,000. Okay. Tiger Stadium, holds 102,000 people. So imagine Tiger Stadium completely full and everybody there just dying, plus some, plus the people waiting outside to get in. I mean, that's how you have to put it in perspective a lot to kids too, because they just don't get it. The percentages, you can tell them numbers and everything, but if you make it visual to them, something that they can understand, it helps a whole lot.
I always use the airplane one. So there's about 250 to 300 people dying per day in the United States from fentanyl poisoning. So imagine an airplane dropping out of the sky every single day. Every day, full airplane dropping out of the sky every day. Do you think the government would ask where the parts are coming from? You think they would ask them to shut down till we figure out how we can get these planes dropping every day out of the sky? The government needs to put a stop to China sending the ingredients to Mexico, and India is the other one
India
that
started, yeah,
sending
behind
the ingredients
the
to
precursors
Mexico.
to Mexico. And then I've just found out recently doing my research, I was trying to find out how much aid we give to Mexico. And we give them almost $600 million a year in aid. The cartels are worth $500 billion. So if Mexico just did its job as far as, imprisoning and confiscating that money and everything, they could, per capita, would probably be richer than us. But I've also found out recently, and something nobody else talks about, is when Mexico went to China and said, okay, you can't send us the fentanyl anymore, send us the precursors. China said, great, we'll do that, but please let us open some banks in Mexico so we can launder your money. So China is not only making money from selling the precursors to fentanyl, but they're making money from laundering that $500 billion.
That's a lot right there. I mean, just thinking about that and knowing this and, with the Tiger Stadium metaphor, with the airplane metaphor, I mean, just kind of going back to, what would the government do? This bill that's being already filed, on Monday, it's got to be voted on. It's got to go through the process.
And we've been through that with Millie's Law.
Well, I want to say about the air, like when you're talking about the deaths, like it's not just 108,000 people that die. That's a lot of parentless children. How many kids are never going to recover from that? How many spouses, moms, dads, siblings are going to commit suicide because they can't recover? So it's just like a domino effect. And then you have these kids that are growing up without their parents, that are struggling with addiction because mom, it doesn't just end when that person dies. Like the turmoil and the lingering effects to our family.
But it continues like that parent, like losing one child, but you still have 4 other children. So it affects how you parent those children, and it affects how you don't parent those children, because some people can't manage. I know I looked up, and I'm a facts person, I have to see it. When Gabrielle died, I knew there was a problem with marriages falling apart because of the death of a child. And so I looked it up, and it's 70% of marriages end when you lose a child. So I went to my husband and I said, these are the numbers. And he said, we're not going to be one of those numbers. You have to make that concerted effort, but there's so many people that don't.
I didn't just lose Hunter that day. Like I lost a piece of my other 2 kids. That will never, his sister's 22 and his brother's about to be 16, and that's like the most important years of their life of needing their brother. So it's just the whole dynamic and the secondary losses. It didn't just end with Hunter.
And going off of that, 22, your daughter, that's right around the age. Exactly. So speaking of that, you mentioned just a bit of it. What's it been like for your other kids? Because y'all all have other kids. How is
We've
that?
we've actually my other kids are adult children, except for the last one, who's 16 and still at home. So I have 3 adult children that don't live at home. The oldest actually has 3 kids of her own. So it has definitely, because they don't live in Lafayette. I mean, they live in, Baton Rouge or Austin and Houston. But it definitely has brought us together. And we say, I love you a lot more. We just are aware of each other's, almost like mood. You kind of learn to read people. When we're together, it's so much more special. And we cherish that time. So fortunately, I mean, they've each struggled in their own way as far as they lost a sister, because they were, all 5 kids are very, very close. But I think they've learned also to talk about her and laugh about her. And we still celebrate her birthday. She was a Christmas Eve baby. So everybody comes in from out of town, and then we celebrate Christmas Eve, not because of Christmas Eve, but because it was her birthday. One child does go to therapy. He took it upon himself to look for that help. But we kind of deal with it together. Like, if we're having a bad day, it's like, I'm having a bad day. Okay, what can we do? And so everybody kind of, by phone or text or somehow gets involved.
It's been rough. It's affected every single area. It brought me and one child closer together, but the other one is in such denial and anger. So it's just affected, destroyed everything.
And then grief doesn't have like a certain path. So not only were my husband and I dealing with our grief, but I had 4 other children dealing with their grief. And everybody deals with it in a very different way at different stages. One of my children was not kind of like gung-ho on the whole advocacy work that I was doing up until recently. He's finally accepted it and understands, why I do it. But for the longest time, he was fine with himself, and he was fine talking about the grief, but he just didn't want to publicize it,
Yeah. Lyric had a twin brother. And Lyric's twin brother, he was not okay. I mean, I put Lyric on billboards to warn other kids how bad, the fentanyl was. And he wasn't about it yet, but, when we talked and I explained to him, this is my way of grieving. This is my way of keeping her close to my soul. This is my way of saving other people through her and her death not being in vain. He's more accepting of it now. Her older sister was right on there, ready for advocacy and ready to, she spoke to a few reporters, 2 days after she died, and so they're both very strong. We are all in therapy because it's needed. It's definitely needed, and all of us are. So it's very important for that. But we're healing and we're grieving, and like you have your great days and you're gung-ho ready to push forward, and then you have your just horrible days where you're like, I don't know if I can get out the bed today. And that's when we lean on each other and say, look, I'm having a rough time. I want to be left alone. Just letting you know.
Yeah, I'm not ignoring you.
Right. I need a minute. Mm-hmm. So, and Lyric's 1 year is coming up, so that's going to be, April 14th is right around that corner.
Yeah,
She just
Hunter's
had
1
Hunter's
year.
1 year.
And Gabrielle's 18 months. So,
But I'm extremely, extremely grateful for all of the people that I've met on this journey, and especially the moms. I had the opportunity to help Lyric at one point get into treatment, so I knew her prior. I had met with Casey prior to that, and then I met Denise on the journey, and I'm extremely,
right after you lost Hunter,
yeah. So I'm extremely grateful because
I immediately knew that this was going to be a friendship.
I don't have to say anything. We get in the car together and we can just make so many jokes and have such a great time and laugh about our kids. And I really feel that these 3 amazing kids brought us together because we each have so many dynamics that we bring to the table, and it just works. The friendship works. They understand me like nobody else. And I'm extremely grateful that our angels put each other, them both in my life.
Absolutely. And that's enough said right there, to be honest with you, because that's awesome that, out of all of this, you guys get together and you can have this moment together and continue to, through the work you guys do, through the advocacy work you guys do. But, going back to this bill, Baton Rouge, no, you're in Baton Rouge. No, y'all are taking the lead, and I love it. It makes my job easier. But with that said, Baton Rouge, Representative Stefanski's bill, you guys are resoundingly behind it, it seems.
Oh, yes.
Now, with all the work that you guys have put in, because I recall, when we talked previously, you guys were telling me, we go to Baton Rouge and it's difficult. We are trying to get the word out. We want people to understand. We want the legislature to understand. Do you think this is the first steps of those legislative members understanding, or do you think more could be done, or is this good for now?
As mothers, I think we always think more can be done.
More can be done.
More can be done. Yes, definitely. I think we will definitely be there for the bill to be passed. We were there. Millie's Law was passed that makes somebody giving fentanyl to somebody else and they're dying second-degree murder. They get 5 to 40 years in prison, and they cannot have it for the first 5 years. They cannot have any good time off. We were completely involved in that. We were in the balcony at the state capitol, holding up pictures of our kids to let them know, hey, you know what? You have to see it.
Yeah.
We have to humanize. I think that's
It's not a number.
Our events also. We hold events all over the state. Lafayette's is coming up on the 25th, and we'll talk about, legislation, and we'll talk about, our kids and humanizing them, because we have invited also not only politicians, but the chief of police from Lafayette. She will be there. Other police officers will be there, EMS,
Health department, coroner.
Yeah, health department, coroner, firemen. We invite all these people because we want to let them know that we are here, we haven't forgotten, and we will fight for our kids. But we also want to tell you about our kids, and tell you how great they were. But yeah, we will be there at the state capitol, and we completely stand behind any legislation that maximizes the amount of time, because there's no other way other than closing the border and going the federal law way to make a change with fentanyl coming in. It's just so easy to get in. It's so deadly, and there's not enough that we can't be doing for it.
And You know, you mentioned showing, your photos of your kids when you're at the state capitol and whatnot. So let me ask you all this. If instead of being able to show your kids' photo, if your kids, which I imagine you guys feel them with you all the time, if they were there with you in those moments at the Capitol, now we don't know which way this bill is going to go, but theoretically, if it were to pass and they were there with you, what do you think they'd tell you guys about this advocacy work that you guys, and unfortunately so many others, are doing?
I think Gabrielle would be, it's awesome. Keep going. Fight harder, Mom. You can be louder. Just she helps some people. She definitely would be right in, gung-ho, all the way.
I laugh because Hunter, he would probably say, "Mom, sit down, sit down and be quiet." But I know he's proud. I know that he looks and he's proud that just to save the next one, because no matter what bill passes or any of that, he's not coming back. Our kids aren't coming back. But I just want to be there for the next mom. That I can say, I understand. Like, I understand how you feel. So I think that he's probably mortified sometimes.
I think when we get together,
it's funny
the
because
three kids sometimes are probably saying, no.
I had this picture that he took, and he absolutely hated this picture, and for whatever reason the news media loved it, and it's the one that they always use, and he hated. So every time the picture pops up, I'm like, but I know that he's just like, he knows that I'm adamant, and that's more, like, I know all of our kids look down and they're like, that's our mom's. That one's mine, that one's mine. And I know they're all so proud.
Yeah. Lyric would be, she'd want me to scream louder, because for a little bitty 5'2" nothing, she had the biggest mouth, and she could pick on us and she could be mean to us, but don't let anybody else pick on us. And
That
she'd
family
be
loyalty.
that family loyalty and that friend loyalty. So I think more than anything, she would be pushing me to go so her friends aren't dying. There's been enough of them that preceded her in death, of her friends. And she would want me to save those people. So, everything we can do, this speaking to you right now is awareness. It's education to everybody that's listening. Every home should have Narcan in it. You can get it at the pharmacy. You do not need a prescription. It is not illegal for you to have. If you're on Medicare, it is free. Go to your pharmacy. It's under Louisiana law. There's no prescription needed. Just go to your pharmacy and get it. Have it in your car. Have it with you at all times. It might not be a family member that you save. It might be another person's family that you save, but you need to be prepared just in case
Every business.
something happens.
Every business
should have it in their first aid kit.
It's not
Yeah.
dangerous. I think people need to understand.
Yeah, it's not
Yes.
dangerous at all.
In the event that you give it to someone and it is not an overdose, it's not going to harm them. So it's not dangerous. It's not.
There's no liability
It just
issue
enables
with
breathing.
it.
Just enables the person to breathe. Me personally, I have overdosed. I don't know how many times. And you never know in that one time that they're just that's enough and make a change.
They all deserve another chance.
Yes.
And another chance. And another chance.
until they're ready.
Yes.
Until they're ready for recovery.
Nobody should have to die poisoned by somebody else. And that's, I guess, the biggest issue is with fentanyl, people aren't asking for it. I mean, yes, there are people that are, addicts that's what they're asking for. But in general, the people that get fentanyl are getting it under the guise that it's something else. And that is where murder comes into play. And that is where poisoning comes into play. These aren't overdoses. This is where the law for just dealing it should be increased. The time in jail, you have to do everything humanly possible to stop these people.
I think another thing that's super important is a lot of times people think, I can tell the difference between this pill, a real pill and a fake pill. The pharmacy can't tell the difference of a good actual pressed pill. The pharmacist can't tell the difference. The police cannot tell the difference until it's tested. So a lot of times people they think that they're educated enough or smart enough to know the difference, and that is not the case.
No.
It looks, you can get a good pressed pill, it looks identical to the real thing.
And not only that, there's no regulation to the pills. So one kid can go on Snapchat, order 5 pills, go with his 4 other friends and say, we're gonna party tonight one time, and everybody takes a pill and 2 die and 3 don't.
Because there's no regulating how much fentanyl is in each pill.
Hunter took half a pill on Wednesday and made a comment, it didn't kill me, it's fine. And the next day took the second half, and the second half is what contains the fentanyl. So just because your friend is okay, that does not mean you're gonna be okay. Just because you have a batch of pills and everybody's fine, it's Russian roulette.
Yeah, and then the test strips, as wonderful as they are, they're a false sense of security. Because when you put a test strip to a pill, you don't know those 3 grains of fentanyl are on the inside, on the outside, on this side, on what's, you're not gonna know. There's no testing. It is helpful for IV drug users because now it's made into a solution and it's distributed and you can check it. But for just regular pills or cocaine or heroin, until it's dissolved, it's no good, really.
Well, I appreciate your time explaining all of this. Is there anything else that you would like to say? Anything else that's important to know? I know that I actually spoke, speaking of test strips and whatnot, last Friday I had spoken with Jean Paul with the Levi Grace Foundation, and he's going to be at Patty in the Park. He's going to be, doing all these things going on. Can we expect to see y'all in the upcoming festivals, tabling and whatnot?
Yeah, we do have a table for Levi Grace Foundation at Patty in the Park tonight. We have a couple of volunteers that are going to be there passing out Narcan. And then
Next week, Wednesday, for the fentanyl awareness on Wednesday. I'll be there.
Yeah, we'll all
Yeah,
be
we'll all be
I
there.
work with, I'm on call tonight, so Patty in the Park, I'll respond to overdoses at the hospital. So with it being Patty, I will probably be on call.
But most important,
Really matters.
next
The
Saturday,
25th.
on the 25th, we will have an event at Girard Park at 10 a.m. with Millie Matter. We'll have all our banners out there that'll show all the kids' faces from Louisiana. We'll have speakers. It's always about education and information and
Kids are welcome.
keeping it relevant in everybody's mind that we need to do something and everybody needs to get involved.
And really quick, you brought up another point here. Kids are invited, getting kids, and you recognize this is at middle schools, high schools, what have you. Now this could be a resounding answer from all of you, maybe it's not. What age is the right age to bring this up to your children? Because there are going to be some parents at home tonight, I imagine, watching this, and they're like,
As soon as
okay,
they
what
can
do I do?
understand speech.
My niece was with me this week, and she's 4, and she asked me why Hunter was in heaven, and she's 4, but I told her he took medication from a stranger that didn't come from the doctor or mom or dad. So, in her mind, it's never too soon. That's unfortunately, It's just the reality of the world that we live in today.
I think, you word things sometimes differently for
course.
elementary schools than you would for high school people, but it's never, ever too soon because all you have to do is look at the news. Look at the news apps on your phone and just put in fentanyl. 300 and something articles about people dying.
Short babies.
And always 2-year-olds, 1-year-old, 18-month-old, 5-year-old, 6-year. So there has to be education in the schools. When I grew up, we had DARE, Just Say No. Was it cheesy, whatever? Yes. But there was education in the schools.
About
We
it
have
all the
no
time.
drug education in the schools right now. None. Why not add it to the health and PE curriculum? And when you have sex ed, you have drug education.
Yeah. Even younger than that. I
But
mean,
yeah, from elementary school, from
yeah, you teach your kids you don't take candy from strangers. You don't go see their free puppies. Word it like that for your little ones. You don't take anything from a stranger and put it in your mouth.
Well, also, I try and tell when parents ask, at what age should I start talking to my kid about fentanyl or about drugs? Well, would you wait till your child was in high school to teach him to look both ways when they cross the road? You wouldn't. You teach them as soon as, they're able to understand. I mean, you just have to. It should not be taboo.
Yeah, that's not the world we live in anymore.
No.
You
Unfortunately.
you have to talk to them as soon as they can understand, because the world we're living in now, it's in gummy bears, and you need to talk to your children and let them know, appropriate talk for appropriate age. Parents, have the conversations, knowing how, old your own child is. Make sure they know not to take anything from strangers, from their friends. It's just got to be overly cautious now, fortunately.
In the next 5 years, 10 years, what would you like to see happen with this fentanyl? Whether it be this bill or other bills moving forward, or the drug in general? I'm sure we want it erased, but
I'd like to see federal action against China, Mexico, India. I'd like to see, them just punished for bringing this to us. There has to be military action. There has to be federal laws with, crossing the border. There has to be change. And until our federal government doesn't get involved, we will continue to do this work here to help, at least the people of Lafayette. Because at least education, you can't take that away from somebody. So as long as we're educating people, they'll know. But yeah, I'd love for it to be gone. And I know the facts of life are that it's not going to, but it definitely can be minimized.
I honestly would like to see, starting from elementary school, mental health programs and the stigma of going to therapy at any age gone. And I think there needs to be more mental health so the kids don't start the process of addiction, from traumas. They can work it out, and it's not a horrible thing. It's not hard to get to. It's not cost prohibited. I'd like to start at the source. When their trauma happens, they have somebody safe to go talk to at their schools, and that might help in some way.
I'm more like the recovery side. I want to see more options for people to recover, where insurance doesn't play a factor, money doesn't play a factor, whether or not you get good treatment.
28 days is not enough.
Yeah,
No.
I just want the stigma of, I've only managed to stay clean through this whole process because I'm involved in a recovery community. So I would love to see that more readily available for people.
Yeah, longer stays in recovery and rehab.
It's a must.
Yeah, 28 days is not enough.
And this is,
Their brain isn't
yeah.
even back to normal to be able to make decisions.
I mean, you
And-
could go to more than 28 days, but you have to have private insurance.
Mm-hmm.
You have to have, I mean, money should not be a factor.
In getting help.
Yeah, if somebody doesn't have money to go to treatment, that should not be a barrier.
Right.
It should be available for everybody.
Well, if you have anything else to say, is there anything you wish I would have asked? Anything left over that's on y'all's minds right now?
Just, definitely just want to let people know to come out to our memorial, our walk on the 25th. Starts at 10 o'clock. Please be out there. Acadiana, we need to feel the love from you. Where all our hearts are broken, and we just want to educate and make people aware. And
You gotta
bring
show up
us.
to make a change.
yes,
Lots of
You
beautiful
gotta show up
kids.
and get involved. Don't wait till you're in our shoes to get involved.
That's enough said right there.
Yeah.
Well, I really appreciate you guys sitting down, taking the time out of your day, your work days, to come sit here and talk with me about this. It really means a lot because
and
I
thank you
think-
for doing it.
Yeah, it means a lot to us to let us voice, some of our thoughts sometimes.
Right.